Welcome to Spectrum Perspectives, real talk with parents, professionals, and autism advocates, with your host, Cindy Gellermini.
Hi, everybody. This is Cindy with another episode of Spectrum Perspectives. And today I'm here with Gary, who is the Executive Director of POAC Autism Services. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And I'm going to interview you like everybody else. We always start the same because you are the dad. You have a son with autism, but you also run the foundation as well. So, and the foundation's been around for quite a while. We'll get to that. I want to talk about that later. But so let's back up, go all the way back to the beginning. Obviously, you were not the one that was pregnant with your son.
No.
But during the pregnancy, were there any kind of red flags or anything?
No, nothing. You know, I remember both of us reading What to Expect When You're Expecting book.
Yes.
And every milestone was met. Everything was fine. It was a normal pregnancy, healthy. Chris's mom.
And delivery as well. How were the APGAR scores and all that?
APGAR scores were fine. They did speed up pregnancy because it was taking too long. Not pregnancy, speed up the delivery. They gave her Pitocin, I remember.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had that with my fourth son, but no. Yeah. Okay. And so then how was the development? The crawling, walking, all that, was that on target?
That was on, What to Expect the first year, the second book. Everything was fine the first year, like amazingly so. First baby, so we had, nothing to compare him against.
Right.
And then as he was starting to get closer to 2, there were things. In retrospect, you look back and you take some of his behavior as brilliance, and you didn't realize anything else. Like he used to, take his car and just spin the wheel over and over. I'm like, oh, look, he's a scientist. He wants to figure out how it's working. Mm-hmm. Or, staring at the ceiling fan. I'm like, wow, he's so fascinated. Maybe he's going to be an engineer or, I didn't realize these were all signs. It took us a good solid year and a half to get the diagnosis for our son, where I'm like, no, something's wrong here.
What year was he born? What year was this?
1994.
94. Okay. Yeah. So autism wasn't a big thing back then. It's not like.
No. It's funny. Depending on what story or news story you look at, it was 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 5,000. Mm-hmm. But it was at that number. I didn't know anybody with autism. Mm-hmm. Now I can't walk into a store with a puzzle piece bracelet without the cashier saying, oh, I have a son with autism.
Right.
But back then it was so rare. And it took a while, about a year and a half, going to his pediatrician saying something's wrong, going to an audiologist because we thought he was hard of hearing because we would call his name and he wouldn't respond. Mm-hmm. I remember going behind him, creeping up and screaming, and Chris not budging. But he would be in his room upstairs, and on the first floor, I hit the power button of the VCR, and the click of the tape, he would hear it and run down the stairs. So I'm like, I had a speech
hard
therapist.
To figure out. Mm-hmm.
Very hard, and like every individual with autism skills are like this, some so much higher than others, which complicates it, because any other child in the world who has these skills, they already have all these. Not necessarily the case with the child with autism. And so it's hearing. We hired a private speech therapist, and no one's saying autism. Nobody. I remember the speech therapist was $80 an hour cash, 3 days a week. And, Mr. Weitzen, he's doing great. But if you want him to do great quicker, we need 5 days a week, $80 an hour cash, not reimbursed by insurance, by the way. No one said it. And it wasn't until we enrolled them into a private preschool, the Goddard School. I think it was the first Goddard school in the state. It's very expensive, great preschool, and we didn't need to do it. My wife was a stay-at-home mom, but we figured, well, maybe just needs to be around other children to get them kick-started or something. And it was the 24-year-old Miss Patty, the preschool teacher, God bless her, wherever she is now, a couple weeks in said, she started the conversation with like a couple words that did her such a disservice and her whole profession. She started the conversation, I'm just a teacher. But then she continued, but I know kids and something's different with Chris. And we explained, went to his pediatrician, they said he's fine, went to audiologist, hired a speech therapist. And she said, well, I think you need to go to a neurologist. I didn't know why you would take a baby to a neurologist. I always thought it was like an old person's doctor, right? Like, don't you think like old people to a neurologist? I'm like, he's healthy. Like, and so we called Children's Specialized Hospital, CHOP, not Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, CHOP, with a 6-month waiting list. So you call up, I think something's wrong with my baby. Okay, see you in 6 months. Wait, what? And I would call every week. And at month 4, they had a cancellation. So we got in only 4-month waiting list. The wait today is up to a year, I'm told, up to a year. So we had I took Chris by myself. His mom really was struggling with everything. We had a newborn. So I took Chris to the neurologist, our evaluation. Oh yeah, your son has autism. Like that.
Wow.
And
how old
Chris,
was the time? Was he
3.5?
Oh, he's 3.5 now. Okay.
We knew something was wrong at 2, and it took 1.5 years to get the
figure it out.
diagnosis. 3 visits with his pediatrician specifically because we thought something was off. And all 3 times they were like, nope, nothing's wrong. In fact, the nurse, and I'm quoting the nurse, Mr. Weitzen, if you would just sit back and allow your son to talk for himself, he would.
Wow.
The term helicopter parent didn't exist in 1997, but that's what she was saying. I'm like, well, I'm anticipating because he doesn't communicate anything. And again, we didn't know. All we heard was he's a boy. Boys develop later. He's going to be fine. You're worrying. He's healthy. He's growing. So I'm like, all right. And you believe the experts, right? But it was a 24-year-old preschool teacher.
They
Miss
said,
Patty.
I had twin girls that were almost 5 years older than Robbie, and they just said,
Right.
oh, his sisters are spoiling him. He's fine. Leave him alone.
Exactly.
He'll
Yeah.
be- yeah. And I just thought it's because he's a boy. He's stubborn. Boys are just different.
Right.
What did I know?
And study after study has proven that if a parent thinks something's wrong with their child, there almost always is. Almost, because we want to think the exact opposite, right? You want to think nothing's wrong with your baby. In fact, if someone's telling you something's wrong, that's when your hair stands up. Oh no, not my kid.
Right.
So if a mother or father is saying, hey doctor, something's up, there almost always is. There almost always is.
Right.
So,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think they feel like the impression I got, because my girls used to get ear infections a lot, and I'd bring them in and I'd want them, put them on antibiotics, do something, make them better. Right. And I think they felt at the time parents were too quick to say there's something wrong, give them a medication, like
exactly.
I don't, so
yeah. Where's the pill?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So now we find out what the diagnosis is. So what's next?
Well, being a man, I wanted to fix it, right? So take my duct tape out. I remember buying, this was 1997, every single book on autism. Every one. Imagine that. Everyone. I can't buy every
How'd you
book.
find them? Because there was no internet. I guess you would go into Barnes and
It
Noble.
just started. I think I was still on Ask Jeeves. I actually started once Chris got the diagnosis. I was thinking about this yesterday. I wrote up a 1-page flyer, typed it up, and Xeroxed it for the parent support group to teach the other parents how to use the internet. This thing, the internet.
Yeah.
Like imagine, like it's crazy.
Wow.
And I think Ask Jeeves it wasn't Bing. It was like Google wasn't around yet. How to use the internet.
Wow.
And I bought, I think there was like 112 books, and I bought 112 books, and I read them all. that's all there were. I
Yeah.
can't buy how many books came out this week. Like there's probably 112 books that came out this week on autism.
Right.
So there was very little, and everything I read at the time, everything I read saying if your child doesn't talk by the time he's 5, he's never going to speak.
Yes, that's the magic number, 5.
5 was the magic number.
Mhm.
And Christopher's 5th birthday was probably the saddest day of my life. Saddest day of my life and his mother's life. Worse than the diagnosis, because at least with the diagnosis, there was a sense of, okay, I knew something was up. Now I got this. Now let's work on this, right? It wasn't a, horrible, even though it was sad for us because like the child you thought you had wasn't. I'm like, now I have to learn, I read the What to Expect the First Year. I didn't read what to expect if your child is autism book because it didn't exist, and it's like you're thrown for this loop and there was just nothing. And 5 years old, every single book said 5. And when Chris turned 5, he knew 3 words: rooster, ketchup, and no. Those were his only words. He didn't know his name was Chris and couldn't say mom or dad.
Right.
So to both of us, it was like, well, that's it. He's never going to speak. It was, and at 27, my son doesn't shut the hell up. I mean, he doesn't stop. I was working today. I was on the way to the meeting and he FaceTimed me 38 times driving up the parkway.
Wow.
38 times. I was like, Chris, stop. I'm trying to concentrate. I'm driving a part of the state I don't know,
Right.
So yeah, he's come a long way, and the information known to the public back then, it was like dark ages, medieval times out there all those years ago. There was nothing.
Right.
There was nothing.
Right.
And as a dad going to the meetings, I was the only dad I ever saw for years.
Right.
For
Meetings
years.
where? What meetings?
Like a support group meeting in the bottom of a basement of a church for autism. Growing up in New Jersey, we're blessed. We had a great organization, POAC, back in the day.
Yes.
Started in 1965.
Yeah.
So it was around a while.
Yes. Yeah. What did that stand for?
Community Outreach Services for the Autism Community, POAC.
Oh, very good.
It is.
When Robbie was diagnosed, I took him to the developmental pediatrician and he handed me a little red pamphlet from POAC. And he said,
Yep.
Here, read this. I recommend
Yep.
that he goes to the Developmental Learning Center. Have a nice life. That was it.
See ya. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got more than most.
Mhm.
You got more than most.
Well, COSAC is now, isn't that New Jersey Autism?
Autism New Jersey.
Yeah.
Autism. Yeah, good organization.
Right.
Good organization. We work well with them.
Okay, so I didn't know they had a support group. You know what? I wasn't into support groups back then. When I had the twins, people wanted me to join a support group. I'm like, I don't need to talk to people.
It wasn't, the support group wasn't a boohoo, woe is me.
Mhm.
Support group is, well, is there a compounding pharmacy that could get this medication made a different way because my son won't take a pill,
Right.
or my son needs a haircut and when you buzz around his ears, he goes nuts. Like
Mhm.
it was more like, a very productive meeting. And were there some boohoo moments? Yeah.
Mhm.
But it was nice coming together. It really was nice coming
Right.
together.
Right. Hmm. So did he go to a school for autistic children or what?
He did went to a private school
Okay.
about an hour away. So an hour on the in a car with his aide in the back seat with him and the driver in the front. He did that for a few years up in Edison, and then he went back to public school. And he stayed in public school until he graduated at age 21 from high school.
Okay, so he obviously speaks to you, has conversations with you. So how did he go from 3 words to speaking?
Yeah, and
Like
it's funny, like
what was the
autism
progression?
is such a spectrum disorder from
Mhm.
extremely impacted, requiring significant resources to independent,
Mhm.
requiring only some resources.
Mhm.
While I would describe my son as conversational, kind of, Yeah, like
Right,
it's the
right,
same
right.
conversation over and over again. He wants to talk about the same things over and over again. And
Mhm.
he's amazing. He can tell me what he wants to do, where he wants to go,
Right.
what we want to eat, and what he wants for his birthday.
Mhm.
And we enjoy going to the movies and concert, like truly enjoy it. We just saw
Right.
West Side Story and he loved it. He got sad at the end when everybody died,
Mhm.
and he kind of hugged me. I said, they're only pretending. They're not
Mhm.
really hurt. But he loved the songs. He sang a couple of the songs,
Mhm.
but we're not having conversations about something that he doesn't feel immediately impacts him.
Mhm.
I'm not going to have a conversation like we're having now at all.
Mhm.
And while he's come so far, and he has,
Right.
and he's not done, I'm excited to see where he's going to be 5 years from now.
Right.
Right?
Mhm.
He works part time in a restaurant. He has a job making a paycheck, but he needs someone there with him
That was my question. Okay. Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
to work.
Right.
And he's great at the job. He makes the recipes in the kitchen, like bread pudding and tomato soup, slices 40 pounds of onions and he's like a machine. And he does it the same every time.
Mhm.
So if you get their bread pudding, it's going to be the same bread pudding every single time because he never alters it an ounce,
Right. Right.
but he's never going to be left on his own,
Right.
ever. And he's
So
going to
he
live
went to public school then. Was he in
self-contained classroom his whole career.
okay.
In a group anywhere from 6 to like 12 kids,
Okay.
his whole career.
And mostly with autism or mixed abilities and
All autism. Yeah,
all okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but
You
we had a lot
are
of autism in our town.
I was just gonna say, you're down near Tom's River and they've got the highest amount of autism in the whole state, I've heard.
In the whole country.
Yeah. Well, I've heard California, somebody's posting that California has
So
maybe us in number, no?
New Jersey has the highest rate. We lost it for a while.
Mhm.
For a little while, it was like Arizona.
Okay.
But we rallied the troops and
Yay.
had a couple more kids. Yeah. And New Jersey, right, currently today, highest rate of autism in the country.
Right, it's 1 in 44? Is it, or no, it's
No,
1 in 32.
no.
No, that's nationally, I think, but it's
Yeah,
1 in
1 in 32.
in New Jersey, and then out of
Oh,
that.
yeah, it just went up. It went up this week. It's
Oh.
actually 135, 135 now. So
Okay.
we lost a little ground. We have to get back on board.
It's so
Diagnose a couple more kids.
It's really sad. And I keep trying to get at,
135.
yeah, is it that there's more kids being diagnosed now that maybe
That's a great
would
question.
not have been 20 years ago, or?
It's all of that.
Mhm.
Autism's the spectrum, right? On the high end, they broadened it about 12 years ago. They increased it. So the kids, when you and I were kids, on the very top, would not have been diagnosed with autism. We would have been the weird kid sitting by himself at lunch
Mhm.
and maybe still living home with mom and dad if they didn't get the help they needed
Right.
along the way.
Mhm.
So that accounts for about 10%.
Mhm.
Do I ever think the number was really 1 in 10,000? Never, never. Is it definitely better diagnosing of autism today? Yes. But are there more cases today than there ever were? Absolutely. Like, when was the last time you saw 2 blind children out in public? Ever? Ever?
No.
Or 2 children with hearing aids out in public that weren't together. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
randomly. When was the last time you saw 2 autistic kids in ShopRite? Today?
Yeah.
Yesterday? Like,
Right. But the thing is, but you and I know it. We know it when we see it.
We
Other
know it
people
when
may
we
not
see
pick up on it. I know just by the mannerisms, the way they walk.
And I don't care where you are on the spectrum, there's a thread that runs through it and
Mhm.
you can pick it up like this.
Mhm.
But when I lecture a lot, I do all the first responder training for POAC.
Mhm.
And when I go to a group of 200 officers, raise your hand if you personally know someone with autism.
Right.
80-90% of the hands go up instantly.
Yeah.
You don't get that with any other disorder. Any other disorder.
Mm-mm.
It's there's more kids with autism now than ever before. Period. It's a huge increase due to just that? Absolutely not. Broadening of the diagnostic criteria and definitely better diagnosing. And with that said, we're not diagnosing nearly enough. the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that every single child in our country get 5 developmental screenings, 3 general ones and 2 autism specific. So every kid in the world, well, in the United States, at 18 months and at 24 months, it's recommended that they get screened for autism. Now, getting screened doesn't mean diagnosed.
Right.
Getting screened is used in something like the MCHAT-R. Free, you can download it on your smartphone or your Apple phone. It takes 5 minutes to fill out. Mom can do it in the waiting room with a pediatrician. And if you score over X number, don't ask me what that number is, but over X number, the likelihood of your child is having autism is pretty high.
Right.
So you get screened, and if you score high enough, okay, now let me get tested. Let me go to a neurologist. Let me go to a specialist and do an ADOS or some other.
Let's try to go to CHOP and wait for a year to get to.
Exactly.
You
To
know,
me, that it borders on criminal.
yeah, that's
It
just,
borders on
that's,
criminal.
well, obviously they need to expand the program and they need more
Yeah.
doctors and they need to, you know, more people out there to fill that need. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is for that.
And the only thing
One of the moms that I interviewed, every mom pretty much that I've talked to, they filled out a form at the pediatrician and they asked them, you know, about the autism symptoms, but one of the dads lied because he didn't want to admit that's what was wrong with his son, you know.
But they don't ask the right questions. Sometimes they ask, does your child point at things? You're like, oh yeah, Johnny pointed at that. No,
Sure.
how often did he point? When was the last time he pointed?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's different. It's different. And if you or I could recognize autism in a room, you know, the pediatricians need to be able to do it
Right.
a little bit better. And there are tools out there to help, specific tools. And the only thing every autism expert agrees on is the earlier you can identify the child, better is for every single person involved.
Right. Right. Yeah. See, no, your son they didn't catch it till he was 3.5. And now the moms I'm talking to, they're catching it at like 18 months.
Oh, see, a mom calls me up with a kid at 18 months just diagnosed. I'm thrilled to get that phone call.
Yeah.
Thrilled.
Yeah.
There's so much hope.
Yeah.
You
Because they're
get
getting
good
help right
services.
away.
Yeah, it's thrilling. I
Yeah.
know they don't think that, but
No, but yeah.
yeah.
Well, because that's
like
the time when language is developing between that 18 months and 3 years.
everything.
That's when they learn
everything.
how to speak. Yeah,
And interact with the world around them.
sure. Okay, so your son, he went to school till he was 21, I'm assuming, and then he
Correct.
graduated.
Yep.
And then did they help him get a job or?
No. He did the DVR, which was a waste of time for
Which is
my
what?
son.
What is
The
DVR?
Division for Vocational Rehab.
Okay,
It's a state funded program. I believe it's federal. I think every state has one. Was not helpful for my son, not at his level. Maybe somebody more independent, able to drive a car, but for Chrissy, no. So then Chris went into a day program. That was awesome, that he loved. And then he's only there part-time now. Then he works and does other stuff because he has a budget that we decide where that's spent. We don't get the money. We don't have access to the money. It's not like, yeah, we can write ourselves a check or even write Christopher a check, but he has a budget.
well,
that we
then
go,
where's the money
"Oh."
coming from? What do you mean?
From the state.
Oh,
And his
okay.
budget's significant.
What is it, his
So,
SSI or? So I'm
No,
trying to help
it's-
other parents. I'm trying to help other parents, right? Like I'm
Got it.
trying to get word out, like, here's what happens after
Got it.
21. There's a lot of parents that are terrified. What's going to
Right.
happen to my kid after graduation, right? So
A-
where are you
a-
getting
a
money
few-
from? How's he finding
Exactly.
a job? How's he doing all that? So
All
let's
right.
talk about
So a
that.
few things. If you're classified, definitely, IEP, maybe a 504, but if you're classified, if you're disabled in New Jersey, you're entitled to school until you're 21 years old.
Mhm.
Because you're entitled to free and appropriate public education.
Right.
You're not entitled to the best education, you're entitled to appropriate legal terms.
Mhm.
So we absolutely, for my case, for my son, it was 100% the right case to keep him in school until he was 21.
Mhm.
So we did that. And you mentioned SSI. there's two types of SSI,
Mhm.
Social Security benefits.
Mhm.
One, if you're below the poverty level, at the poverty level, I'm not sure what that is, but you could Google it. You're entitled to SSI regardless of how old your child is, but it's low, money-wise. But at 18 years old, assuming your child is classified as disabled from DDD, Department of Developmental Disabilities, which my son is, which most children with autism in the self-contained classrooms absolutely would be. At 18 years old, he's entitled automatically, when you fill out the paperwork, for SSI. So he gets about $600 a month. And it varies on need and, a few other things, but that's a good roundabout. So he gets that for the rest of his life.
Mhm.
Non-taxable. We don't have to pay tax on that. At 21, we applied to the state through DDD for a budget, and they evaluate them. They send somebody out, a bunch of forms. So Chris gets a budget. I'm making up a figure here, $50,000, right? $50,000. And now we get to decide, because it's self-directed along with Chris, hey, how do you want to spend this money? Maybe he wants to go to a day program where someone would pick him up every day, take him, and they do outings and work on skills. And maybe if you go 3 days a week, that's $30,000 out of your budget. Again, we don't write the checks. There's another admin in there called a support coordinator, and their name says it all. They coordinate all your child supports. So 30 grand for that. Hey, you got 20 grand off. Oh, maybe he wants to go to cooking school 1 day a week, or take horseback riding or martial arts. And the programs have to be qualified by DDD. And there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, there's thousands of them. And you can spend it that way. So you could really carve up a very varied life for your child. You could hire a job coach. You want them to work. The child wants to work. The adult wants to work. You could hire a job coach to work towards that. You can, take classes on on anything. Or if you're happy with it, you could go to like a day program 5 days a week. It's up to the individual and to their guardians, and hopefully it's what's most enriching for the individual. That's the goal,
Mhm.
most enjoyable, and will increase their level of independence.
So
Because
you
as
can
much as,
use this money to hire an aide to watch
yes,
your son during the day if he wanted to. Like if he didn't want to go to a day program, but he just wanted to go to the store, go to the park, whatever. Because I know that there's people that want that, but they think they can't afford that. So they're
yes,
obviously not registering, or they're not doing something right.
correct. It gets a little tricky with just having someone watch your son during the day, because it has to be from an
Through
agency
an
that's
agency.
certified.
Right.
So there's agencies that provide respite that could come out and work with your child. So yes, but there's a lot of help, and talking to other parents is probably, one of the most important things. In New Jersey, our agency has a closed Facebook group, the New Jersey Autism Warriors. We have 6,000 mothers on there, a couple dads thrown in. You don't have to be a mom, but most of the people on there are the mothers. 6,000 New Jersey families on there. If you have a question, you type it in there, you're going to get an answer.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of today's episode. Be sure to join us again next time to hear the second half of the interview on Spectrum Perspectives.
I hope you enjoyed listening and it helped you gain a new perspective. To see the video version of the show, go to our YouTube channel, Robbie and Me, Autism Reality. If you're interested in buying our book series, Robbie's World and His Spectrum of Adventures, the link will be in our episode description, as well as my Instagram and Facebook pages. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like more content, please be sure to hit that like button, follow us, and don't forget to leave us a great review. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.